Fuck! My dad yelled from inside the house. John, get in here on the double. This was 2 days later. I had foolishly let myself feel something close to happiness during these days since my dad had been relatively calm and since I had spent more time with Zahira on my walks. I was outside playing with Luna. I closed my eyes while the small amount of happiness I had built up poured out of my body. Stay put, I said to Luna. No, stay. Don't let me wait, you know I hate waiting. Dad yelled. Look what you made me do. As he said when I came inside, you and your fucking dog. He had tipped over his beer. I stared at it dripping from the table. Don't just stand there, he yelled. Clean up your fucking mess. I knew what he was thinking. Luna had barked outside, getting him all worked up, and he had spilled his beer so naturally it must have been my fault for playing with Luna. It made me want to scream. I heard Zahira's word over my own self-deprecating thoughts. It's not your fault. You know that, right? I mopped the floor without saying a word, thinking about Mom. She used to do all the cleaning before. I missed her so much. My dad was also reminded of her, seeing me clean up his beer, and said with a mouth twisted in contempt, just like your mother, that fucking whore. I stopped in my tracks. Perhaps it was the courage that Zahira had invoked inside me that made me open my mouth, but I instantly regretted saying it. She wasn't a whore. Excuse me? My dad got up from his armchair. What did you say? Nothing, I said and continued mopping. She wasn't a whore? Was that what you said? He walked up to me and yelled into my ear. Was that what you fucking said? No, I said, trying to ignore him, breathing down my neck. She wasn't a fucking whore, he yelled, even though she never stopped talking to her so-called guy friends after I told her to. Even though she never came home on time after being out with her slutty friends from work. She was a whore, a whore, a whore, a whore. Do you hear me? A fucking whore. His saliva landed on my chin, leaving an odor of half-digested beer. I imagined the great forest of Venus. I imagined looking up at Earth and seeing nothing more than a dot in the sky. My dad was very controlling as well, Zahira said, pushing her dark bangs out of her face. And it didn't matter what I did, it was never good enough. I was never good enough. We walked next to the water. Luna proudly walked in front of us with a stick in her mouth. I felt safe, even though it probably made me less safe defying my dad. But by now, I considered Zahira my friend, the only one I got except Luna. Did he ever... I interrupted myself and lowered my voice. Did he ever, hit you? No, she said, but I was never allowed to do anything. I was pretty much locked up all the time. It was for my own safety, they said. I never got to make any friends. I remember sitting in my room, staring out the window and watching the notorious Venusian storms rage outside. It must have been really hard for them to send me all the way here. Where do you live? I asked. I mean here on the island. I'll show you. She brought me to an old yellow house at the center of the island. It was abandoned. Inside, I saw that there was a large hole in the roof. My capsule crashed right through the ceiling, Zahira said, and pointed at the hole, and then at a rusty object on the floor that looked like an old refrigerator. That's the capsule? I asked. It doesn't look very much like a spaceship. It wasn't a spaceship, she said. Lolo carried it. I nodded, trying to avoid looking skeptical. I know you don't believe me, she said, but it's okay. No one is supposed to know anyway. Although I don't mind telling you, it doesn't matter anymore. It isn't like there are any redcoats left. She walked to the window and yelled at an old couple that happened to be taking a walk nearby. I'm from Venus. Hello, do you hear me? I'm from Venus. She looked back at me. See? No one cares. They're all gone. Eat more over there, my dad said and touched the chicken at the edge of my plate. "Don't just eat the rice." He continued to stare at me to make sure I did as I was told. "Come on, don't just look at the damn chicken. Eat it." I was already full. He always put too much food on my plate, and he never allowed me to do it myself. Reluctantly, I placed some of the chicken in my mouth. I began chewing carefully, but it didn't matter. "Don't gobble," my dad said, spitting pieces of food he hadn't swallowed yet. "You sound like a fucking pig, for God's sake. Makes me wanna puke." I looked down, hyper-aware of my jaws moving, fearing that he would lose his temper. "I don't want to see a single grain of rice left on that plate, okay? You're too thin. Do you want to be teased at school? You look like a wimp." I wanted to cry, but I just kept eating and eating and eating. He washed my hands over the sink after I had finally finished. He didn't allow me to wash my own hands since I would just splash down everything. At least that's what he said. I didn't know at the time that it was just about control. Zahira was dancing by herself in the middle of a clearing. She was still wearing the same dress as the day I met her. The green squeens glittered like stars in the sunlight. I walked down to her with my hands deep in my pockets. "There you are," she said. I was listening to the bird song and suddenly just felt like dancing. Can you believe it? Dancing. It was such a long time ago. The echo from my dad's rifle bounced between the trunks around us. A few birds flew out of the trees. "Is he target practicing again?" she asked. "It's a shame. He's scaring away all the birds." "He's drunk," I said. "Can't aim for shit." Zahira giggled. "My dad used to hunt in the royal forest," she said. "He took me with him on a few occasions. I was just a little kid back then." She shied away with her gaze. I always felt so sorry for the poor animals he killed. Now all those animals are gone. For a moment, I thought she was about to cry, but she pushed her tears down and regained her cheerful expression. We walked to the meadow and laid on our backs in the grass, watching the blue skies above us. Luna ran around nearby, chasing butterflies. "They're so white," she said. "Back where I come from, the clouds always had a purple shade to them. I'm not sure what caused it, but it was different." As long as we could hear my dad's gun go off in the distance, I knew he was too busy to care about where I was. Hence, each gunshot made me breathe a sign of relief. "We are friends, right?" I asked. "Of course," Zahira said, still looking at the clouds. "You're my only friend on earth. Will I ever see you again? I mean, after summer break, when I have to go back to the city with my dad." I turned my head to look at her. A tear finally broke free and came down her cheek. "There's something I haven't told you," she said. I held my breath, fearing the words she was about to speak. I thought she was about to finally tell me the truth about who she was, and that it would mean that we would never see each other again. But instead, she said, "I'm not supposed to be here." "What do you mean?" I asked. "There was a brave soldier back on Venus. His name was Araf. He was supposed to be our last hope. Our spies had provided us with the blueprints of the device that allowed the British to build their secret weapon. Of course, we couldn't use it on them like they could use it on us, not without destroying ourselves in the process. But we were going to use it to stop their attack in our distant past. Araf was going to be put in a capsule together with one of our most advanced giants." She stopped herself to wipe her tears. Then she turned away from the clouds and looked me in the eyes. I was so confused when my father woke me up in the middle of the night. He was crying. It was the first time I ever saw him do that. I cried as well when he forced me into the capsule. All I had time to grab from my room was this stupid dress. My dad said that he changed the directive of Lolo. It was now set up to protect me at all costs. He sacrificed our entire planet to save me. She sobbed while we spoke. "What an idiot. I thought he didn't care about me, you know. He shouldn't have done it. How could he? I hate him." but I could hear in her voice that wasn't what she really felt. Lolo still has the device, she continued. I'm going to use it. I'm going to complete Araf's mission and save Venus. That's my plan. All of this entire timeline is wrong. It was never supposed to be like this. But you're my friend, and I don't want you to be erased together with everyone else here. That's why I want to bring you with me into the capsule. Why don't you show me? I asked. If you're telling the truth, why don't you show me your time machine and that it works? Oh, don't be silly, she said. I can only use it once. After that, there won't be enough energy left in it to travel back. It was always meant to be a one-way trip. You just have to trust me, okay? You don't have that much time to think about it. Lolo is running out of battery power. I told you, he's dying. We might just have days. Please join me in the capsule. I was just about to ask her to stop pretending and tell me who she really was, a bit angry that she still refused to open up after all this time together, when I realized how long it had been since I heard Dad's gun go off. My skin crawled at the realization, and then Zahira said, "Where's Luna?" I stood up, looking around frantically. Luna. She didn't come running as she used to. I kept yelling for her until my voice cracked. "Listen," Zahira said. "Can you hear it?" A faint sound. It was my dad's four-wheeler, driving back to the house from the road. He must have taken her, I said, pallid and in tears. She must have gone down to the road. I should have kept my eyes on her. I'm so stupid. I'm so freaking stupid. Don't say that, Zahira said. It's not your fault. I barely heard what she was saying. She followed me as I ran back to the house, not knowing what to expect. I was too worried to think about what would happen if my dad ever saw me with Zahira again. He was drunk. I could tell immediately from how he stumbled around. The empty beer bottles on the wooden trestle were still intact. He hadn't hit a single one. He held the rifle in his hand. "I thought I told you," he said, and turned around with the gun pointed at us without thinking about it. "I thought I told you not to hang around with that girl anymore." "Where's Luna?" I asked, fruitlessly trying to spot her. "Where is she?" "Go home," my dad said to Zahira. "You're trespassing." "I'm not leaving," she said. "Where's the dog?" "Oh, she had to be put down," he slurred. It's what I said would happen, and unlike my ungrateful son, I always keep my word. I panicked. "Luna." No response. "Luna." "You're a monster," Zahira yelled. "John has told me all about you, and I'm going to tell everyone what you've been up to here. It can't be legal. You'll be arrested." My dad went quiet for a second, just as if he tried to process what she had just said. I grabbed Zahira's arm and begged her not to provoke him, but she wouldn't listen. "You're not going to get away with this," she said. "You're..." The gun went off. My dad's drunken face turned pale in an instant. It was just as if his finger had pulled the trigger all on its own, or rather as if he had let the finger move on its own, just for a split second, before realizing what a bad idea it was. The bullet bounced away right in front of Zahira's face, shooting sparks. For a second, we all fell silent. Neither my dad nor I could grasp what had just happened. Then, out of thin air, something spoke incredibly loud and with a synthesized edge to its voice. "Drop your weapon and step away from the princess." Slowly, the air in front of Zahira began to vibrate. Patches of rusty metal appeared out of nowhere and grew until an enormous mechanical hand hovered just where the bullet had hit. Its enormous arm followed, and then the rest of its body. It looked at my dad with its red glowing eyes, and then down at Zahira. My dad dropped the gun, took a few steps back, and fell backward. He crawled towards the house. This was one of the giants she had been talking about, I thought, as it towered above us, like an ancient god made out of metal. Zahira looked at me from behind its hand. "Run," she said. "Run to the capsule and don't look back." But, I said. "What about you?" "I told you, I'll put everything right. You'll never suffer again. You have to go." "Come with me," I said. "Please, I need you." "I'm sorry," she said. "Uncloaking takes a lot of power. It's now or never. Lolo won't make it to the capsule. I have to stay and give the order. Go, John. Please, go." And I ran. The last thing I heard her say was, "It's time, Lolo." The door to the capsule was heavy and the metal squeaked when I finally got it opened. Darkness embraced me when I closed it above me. The silence inside was total. It wasn't until now that I really thought about what was happening and about what was about to happen. I closed my eyes, waiting for something, but nothing happened. After about an hour, I opened the door and crawled outside. I didn't know what to expect. Had the entire world changed? Was the British Empire restored? The island looked the same. It wasn't until I reached my house that I saw what way everything was different. The grass was neatly trimmed and the beer bottles were gone. I yelled for Zahira, but to no avail. Then, feeling my heartbeat drum against my chest, I yelled for Luna. A few seconds followed, and then someone opened the front door and Luna came running towards me. I fell on my knees, crying tears of relief as she licked my face and wagged her tail. "Who are you?" It was the woman who had opened the door. "I don't think I've seen you around here." She was wearing a white summer dress. For a short moment, I didn't recognize her, but then I saw who it was. It was Mom. I couldn't believe my eyes. "You look familiar," she said with a warm smile. "How did you know my dog's name?" "Mom?" I said. "Where's Dad?" She didn't know what I was talking about. Dad was gone, just as if he had never existed. My mom had never met him, and I had never been born, but the capsule had preserved me. Although she didn't know who I was, my mom still felt a strong connection to me after having taken care of me for the rest of the summer. And after a long and drawn-out legal process, she adopted me. I don't think she ever believed me when I told her how I ended up at her summer house, but she had always wanted a child, and when it became clear to her that I truly didn't have anyone else, she chose to see me as a gift sent from above. And in a way, I was. I never saw Zahira again, although I think she's still out there somewhere, and Venus remained a yellow dot in the evening sky.